Evening, everyone. Welcome. We are going to get started here in just a minute. Thanks for joining. I double booked, just running over from parent-teacher conference back to school night, so we might have some other people joining on here. So thanks for joining in. If you don't mind, would love in the chat if you want to put where you're located. I see a couple of our Helix users on here, but also some new folks. So love to hear where you're at, if you're doing some gait analysis stuff, and what we're looking for there. Hey, Brett, how are you? So if you don't mind, we'll give people another minute or two to hop on before we get started, and then we'll try to keep it on track here. Nevada, Idaho, we got West Coast strong here. Let's see who else we have coming on here. Coach Pat, Virginia, welcome. Oregon, all right. How are you, Ro? Good. Ellicott City, not far from me here in Wilmington, Delaware. Saratoga. We got a bunch of Reese. How are you, Reese? Chicago. Eric in Dallas. How are you, Eric? Good to see you. Good. Sherry in Santa Rosa Beach, Pittsburgh. Wow, we got a lot of good places here. All right. Well, just a quick introduction for tonight here, and appreciate everyone taking time. I know I was talking, not a lot of New York people. Do we have any Bills fan? Aren't the Bills playing right now here for Thursday night football? I think a couple people tell me about that. So appreciate you coming on. The point of this evening and what we really want to do is I record a gait analysis, and it's just an example to see how I do a gait analysis and what that looks like in real time, and how people are responding to it, how I select different cues. This is meant to be very Q&A, very discussion based, not slides. It's going to be a recording of me doing a gait analysis and what that looks like. It's a really interesting case tonight. This is something that whether you're doing 3D or whether you're doing 2D, you can really use a lot of this. It's definitely very on the cueing and how to select it. And tonight's example, I did a couple different cues and really found some that worked and found some that didn't. Went off script a little bit on some of the places and found some good results with that. And I actually also, this is somebody that I followed up with twice, did this back in May. So I've had a couple follow-ups with this person too, so we have some extra results. This is not a sales pitch for 3D. I know we do have some people that had been talking to people about 3D. If you are interested in the 3D, stick around at the end. There's a little special that's launching here in a week. If you're interested in that, stick around when we're done and I'll show you that. But this is really for anybody doing gait analysis and is looking to get some experience of what does the cues look like? What are we looking for? That's what we really want. So I think most people are probably joined at this point that are going to hop on. So I'm going to share my screen here and I'll give you a little background on our runner here. So we have, this is our runner. He's a mid-40s male. He runs 13 miles every other day at a 6:30 to 6:45 pace. And when I asked him a little bit more about that, he said that was about a 9 out of 10 effort level for him. He is working hard the whole time. He started just running every other day. He didn't do any running a couple years ago, and he just started at 3 miles and just worked up and gradually built up where he runs 13 miles every other day at that 6:30 to 6:45 pace. So some people's flags should be going up already with this. This is why we take a lot of time with the subjective, with the gait analysis. And it was definitely something that I cued into when we heard that. So then he came to us about 6 months before the eval, which we did in May. So in December, he went golfing, and after he played golf, he started having left foot pain, which then turned into bilateral foot pain. And eventually it led to him having right knee pain, and specifically around the IT band. His wife is a physician, so he got some imaging, tried some PT, didn't see some improvement, and then got a steroid dose pack, which calmed things down pretty well. But at the point that I saw him, he was just doing a return to run program. I had actually met his wife. I was doing a presentation out in Arizona, and was able to, kind of chat with her about this. And so he traveled down to see me. And he was running 15 minutes of running and 2 minutes walking. And he was doing that twice. And that was really where he had gotten back to, and still was having a little bit of right knee pain. He would still feel it after. When I asked him about gym stuff, he does weightlifting, but he doesn't do any lower extremity strengthening because he feels like he's not comfortable with his form or technique. He doesn't do any races. He mostly likes just to train, and he wants to just never really miss that every other day running. He had never had any other running related injuries, and had just really kind of pretty healthy up until this point, but it's frustrated, dealing with this injury for 5 or 6 months and not really finding some answers. So I'm going to play the video a little bit. We're going to start after I did this objective, then kind of giving some summary points of his runner readiness assessment. So what we found with that runner readiness assessment is actually you've got really good overall movement. Okay, the thing that stood out was the sit to stand. Yeah. That's the thing that is kind of our big thing, where you have good ankle mobility, hip mobility, mobility wise pretty good. I think it's more of a stability type issue here, particularly right around here, around your hips and pelvis area. Which is what we need to generate force as we push off and go. But otherwise, your movements are pretty good there with it. So I'm going to have you put shoes and socks back on, and then we're going to check some things out here. So just, routine quickly with this, we're just kind of talking about his warm up and things like that. But quickly, while we're talking about that, just note some of the benefit of this is summary, trying to not use very technical terms and just kind of talking to him about, overall, what does mobility look like? I think it's important to check mobility and stability. If you've taken our courses, we have the runner readiness assessment. We use that. That's a really good way to check that out. And just kind of have an idea before he gets up on the treadmill what we might be dealing with. And he actually had really good mobility there. And I was impressed with that, just knowing that he kind of standing, you can even look at his posture a little bit, how he stands, foot externally rotated. We see some tibial varum on that. I expected him to have really tight hips and ankles from and he had even self-described some of that, but he moved really well, actually. So his warm-up routine was pretty basic. He was just doing some dynamic stretching mostly, and just getting set up with some of that stuff. So, all right, why don't you hop up, stand on the treadmill for me, and then I'm going to put some markers on you, move around a little bit, and we'll get you all set up. If you pause even there, I am big on visual observation, and if you just see from this view, one of the other things we noted is you can just see the difference in the calf size. If you look at that, it's not just the angle that we're at here. You can see a pretty big difference in that right versus left calf size. So I like to note that stuff as well as we're kind of looking at that. So if you haven't seen the Helix before, this is just kind of putting the straps on. It's 2 to 3 minutes to really load that up here. Check, make sure I got all the. And we just put those markers on. We make sure there's nothing reflective on them. Yep, kind of putting some of that on here. If you guys have questions as you go, don't be afraid to put them in the chat there. That we would blank you out there. All right, I'm probably going to check you out at the pace that you've been running. I might put it at 7-minute pace just to kind of see. Yeah. And then we're going to play around with the pace and see if we want to do anything around that later. But do me a favor, stand So we're just going to calibrate him now, but I chose to run him at the pace that he typically runs at. Although in my head, I'm definitely thinking that we might want to change what that pace looks like and what we're doing. So that's just, we're going to put him at that faster speed, but we might want to try some other speeds later too with that. All right, so we just calibrate him. This is where we make the 3D model of him.
Now we'll walk just a little bit here.
We did warm him up a little bit. Just walk a little bit, do some of those things.
There we go. Walk for a sec.
You guys can just do some little visual observation, just see like walking.
That's good. Nothing slipping or sliding. All right.
Give him time to warm up. He was also just the nicest guy, just very friendly. We'll have a couple different views. So if you are doing 2D analysis, like try to see if you can observe anything from the side, from the back, looking at the different angles there. I love the treadmill. It is a little tough to see from the side, some of that stuff. And, we're at like a 7-minute pace here. He looks pretty comfortable with it here. I know he says he's doing like a 9 or 10 effort, but I will observe like he doesn't look like he's really straining too hard for that. So you see up in the upper right corner, we're doing a couple. I'll do typically 2 or 3 trials as they're just getting warmed up. I like to see consistency. I like to see if it changes. I had a gait analysis yesterday. It's like I was kind of ramping them up in speed. And this was with a professional runner, but when we got to 7-minute pace, he was pretty good. We went to 6:45, pretty good. And as soon as he went to 6:20, which is his typical long run pace, or his long run pace, his form broke down pretty consistently. So it's good even as they warm up sometimes to check him at different paces.
That there. Let's come check it out here.
All right, so we'll share the results here.
This is you running, right? We're from the back. So this is your right side, and this is your left side. Right is blue and left is red. That doesn't mean good or bad. It's just left versus right here. So now I'm just going to slow this down a little bit for us here so we can kind of see. So there's left leg landing, right leg landing, left, right, left. There we go. So now we'll look kind of from the front. Okay.
That's fun to see.
So it's neat, isn't it? Yeah, where you can kind of see what's going on, maybe some of those things that we noticed earlier, looking at some of those things as well. So now we're looking here. So there's from the left side. And there's a lot of good things that I like about it. So you'll notice over here, if we kind of explain some of that, it gives you a score.
Okay.
Right. So the score is lower is better.
Okay.
1.2 is considered let's not change anything.
Okay.
Running form looks great, but it goes to infinity.
Sure.
We typically like people to be like a young, healthy runner like you. I'd like you in the like single digits.
Sure.
So you're at 4.8, which is pretty good.
Okay.
The next thing it gives us is a collapser bouncer. So this is your category. So this means like, what's the thing that we should focus on addressing and changing? Okay, so the collapsing means that when you're running, kind of similar to what we saw with your sit to stand.
Yeah.
Look at the position kind of that knee, right? See how they're kind of coming inwards that way? We're even seeing a little pelvic change there. What we notice a little bit on both hips here, and more so at the right ankle, but the right hips here, we're seeing right hips and that we're seeing on 14 degrees of adduction. On the left, you actually go 8 degrees of internal rotation. On the right, 4. On the left, there's 5 degrees of pelvic drop, and the right, 2. So that's the collapsing that we're talking about, and that's the knee going inward, right? That's that same collapsing type position that puts shear stress on the body.
Okay.
Our body's really good at loading things up and down, but it's not so good at twisting.
Okay.
So that's what we see there with it. So that's the collapsing part of the category. The bouncing part of the category is that you have a high vertical oscillation.
Okay.
So you're going up and down 10 centimeters every time that you run.
Wow.
So physics, what goes up must come down. So we see that higher amount of oscillation, up and down movement, can contribute to some of the collapsing mechanics, right? So the only other thing we see here is that I like a lot about how you land, right? But when we look at you, what I like about this here, so this is the right leg landing. What I like is that your shin is almost straight up and down.
Okay.
The only thing I don't like is that your foot's almost straight up and down too, right? A more neutral, flat position is often better for it. So you don't land too far in front of your body, at the right 27 centimeters, on the left 26. But that, if your foot was just a little bit more relaxed, it might help you out a bit.
I probably need to, I have been, with the injury,
Yeah.
I've focused on just really not having tight hands and business loose as well. I probably wasn't thinking
About
along
that
that
much.
way, but lately I've been trying to focus on being as loose
Be loose as possible. Good, which is, you know, the higher level of that.
It felt better when I
Did it?
focused on it.
Which is good. So here's what I want to try to do. I'm going to have you run now without trying any cue.
Sure.
I just want to run at that like 8-minute pace that we talked about.
Yeah.
And let's just see what that looks like and see if any of that changes. And then we're going to talk about some different cues and some different things there. So we're going to do the same thing. And I'm just going to make sure everything still looks good. Nope, nothing knocked off there. I'm just going to make sure the ones on the skin are still on. Good. So bring it to the same pace. And I want to see what it looks like at 8-minute pace.
So I probably, typically what I do, and I just forgot kind of with everything going on, I typically will check them at different paces without reviewing their mechanics with them before, because he might be cued in with what I told him with the foot, and he might try to relax it a little bit more. So are we getting a true difference in some of the mechanics there? Like, that's something that, you know, when I watched it, I was like, I really should have just done another one right away at the 8-minute pace and just slowed him down before I even reviewed his mechanics. It would have been easy to do that. But I did want to see if his mechanics changed at the slower pace, because I was in my head wanting to recommend that he did change that pace.
Good. All right, let's take a look at it. So interestingly, at the slower pace, like your preferred pace is that faster pace. We see that you're scoring up to actually an 11 when you run slower. So when you're running faster, you're on the ground for less time. Like your ground contact time went from the low 160s to the high 170s.
Sure.
So what happens is we saw that the longer you're on the ground, the more you're doing some of that collapsing that we talked about. So the kind of the balancing point is teaching you to run well at this slower speed so that you're not putting as much force on the body, but giving you that chance, where we see some of the hip stuff was more accentuated. So your left went to 15 degrees of adduction and 8 degrees of internal rotation, and the right was 15 degrees of adduction, 0 of rotation. But it's, you started to come in a little bit more just because you were,
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense, because you're so used to running at 6:30 pace or faster here. So we still see the foot as part of that. So I want to try, like, a lot of this is really good. Like, we're nitpicking because I really like the shape of this curve for you. I just would like the foot to be a little bit better. And I'd like this part where these aren't coming as close together here.
You know, in the summer months, I always will see dirt on the inside.
On the inside of the knee.
Clipping each other.
That makes total sense here. So we're just going to call this one, and we're going to send you all these videos. Baseline 7-minute mile. Okay. And we're going to hit save. All right. Now let's hop back up here.
And just, you know, while we're doing some queuing, you know, let me know if you have any questions about that. Like, it does make sense that when we slowed him down, it's just, he's used to running at the other speed. So it makes sense that he's not necessarily as fluid with his mechanics. Anytime we change form, it's going to be a little bit foreign for them. But because he reported that his runs were a 9 out of 10 effort every time he ran, I we needed to address that. That was something that I needed to address. So that's why we kind of did the rest of this at the, 8 miles an hour, a little bit slower.
First cue that we're going to talk about. So what I want to try with this is I want you to pick a spot in front of you, because you are having a good bit of bouncing up and down.
Yeah.
So I want you to try to pick the spot in front of you and limit how much you're going up and down.
Okay.
Right. And we're going to see, we give you weird cues.
Yeah.
Sometimes to give you like just feel a different posture.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's try this again. We're going to go back to that 8-minute pace, because I would like to train you to run well there.
Good.
That's all right. I want you to just practice it for a second. We'll put the sensor back on, and we lost the ankles as we're getting a little sweat going there. Good. How's that feel?
He was very good. He was a little sweaty guy.
What feels good about it, or what feels different?
It does feel nice to not have as much of the bounce. I think
Okay.
limits the impact of
The impact a little bit. Good. Okay. Good. All right. Now I'm going to stop it. We're going to put those markers back on.
If you couldn't hear him, he said it was less impact when he ran with the lower bounce.
Just like you're doing with your running program now, we want to give you the ability to have a little bit of time to let your brain organize and learn the movement. Because the goal isn't to get you to always have to think about this.
Yeah.
The goal is to teach you how to do it and then let you do that more naturally once it becomes your self-selected pattern there.
Just for the Helix users, you saw I put the tape on the skin directly, and then I put the marker on top of it. If you do have somebody that sweats a little bit more, that's probably the best way to do it.
Now I'm going to bring you up to speed, and you're going to do the same thing. Pick that spot and just see if you can limit how much you're going up and down. Good. How's that feeling?
Good.
Now, go back to your old way.
Okay.
What do you feel different?
A lot. I can definitely.
You can tell the difference in height. Good.
For sure.
Okay. All right.
That's one of my favorite things to do. If you don't do that with your gait analysis, I think that that's really important. The whole thing that we're trying to do with these cues is get somebody to feel the difference between the old form and the new form. So when we're teaching them how to do that, getting them to go back to their old form makes a huge difference in them buying into it so that they can feel the difference, especially when they've had an injury, when they are experiencing pain. It can get them to solidify that. It also gets the brain thinking like, oh, doesn't have to hurt. I can run without pain.
Take a look at it. So remember, when you were running at this speed last time, you were at 11.2, I think. You cut it in half, right? So 5.7, which is good. And it looks more similar to your other running speed here. 9 centimeters. So you came down. So it doesn't have to be a dramatic difference, but 1 centimeter.
That's crazy.
Over the course of 13 miles.
That's a lot of sense.
That adds up there. So I like that. The only thing we see is just a little bit, because the longer your ground contact time is, the more we get a little bit of that hip rotation in. Sure. So I want to try 2 other cues with this. Okay. I'm going to try, the first one I'm going to try is I'm going to tell you to run quiet.
Okay.
Okay. And I want you just to see how quietly you can run on here.
So if you're doing a gait analysis like this I had 90 minutes for this gait analysis. If you're doing a 60-minute gait analysis, you're doing some shorter screens, 15, 20-minute sessions, probably could have stopped there. Could have said, okay, we found something. This is a great first step. Let's focus on this. What I was observing here, and because I had longer time with him, I was noticing that he was still having that 21 degrees of foot inclination on the involved side. And just knowing that the impact with some of that, and like I was still hearing some foot slap a little bit because of that high foot inclination, I wanted to see what I could do with that. So when you pick a cue, you have to understand what are the cues hired to do. Like, why am I using this cue? What do I hope that it will do? A run quiet cue, there's a couple different things that's going to help. Most often, we're going to see that people are going to increase their cadence a bit when they run quietly. They're more likely to land in a bit of a neutral to a forefoot. They're going to be non-rear foot when they land that way. We also see that the vertical oscillation goes down. So my hope with this, by choosing that cue, was, can I get the vertical oscillation down, which we saw just helped, and can I get him to land in a more neutral foot position, hoping that that's going to reduce some of the forces so that he doesn't have to go into as much adduction and internal rotation. So the idea was to try to find one cue that had multiple benefits. However, in my back pocket, I know that I've already got a good cue at this point.
I'm going to see how that does. I want you to forget about the other one, okay? And we're going to focus on this. And then we're going to kind of pick the one that makes the most sense for you and for the numbers, okay? So let's go ahead. I'm going to bring you back up to speed here. And you just run quiet. Run low to the ground. What do you think?
I think that the one where I was focused on not bouncing probably felt the best.
The best so far. Good. So this one, slightly lower. You're 5.04, you're 5.7, right? You still have a decent amount of the hip adduction going on there. But in general, ground contact time came down just a little bit there. The thing is, I was curious to see, actually, run quiet. A lot of times people pick up the cadence a little bit. You actually slowed yours down.
When I was thinking of quiet, I was like trying to have it just be sort of a smooth, like less thudding of the feet.
Which you are a little bit less of that, right? The foot is still about the same angle though. So now I want to try one other cue, and then we're going to do one. We're going to try one other thing too. So I want you to come up here. I want you to think about, you know how we've been watching your knees kind of come inward a bit, right? I want you to think about, you got a softball between your knees. Don't let that softball get squeezed or pinched, right? Yeah, I used to always give the, remember the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves?
Yes.
Like you're of that same age group as I am there, where it's like, if they touch, it's going to blow up, right? Don't let the knees come together. If the wires touch, it's going to blow up. So let's get you to, I want you to try that. And then we're going to try one actually where I pop off your shoes, okay?
While we're watching here, just note on that last cue that we were seeing that he, even though his score got a little bit better, he didn't like it as much, and probably because it slowed his cadence down a little bit, and he was noticing some of that difference there. So their subjective report is often more important than just the score, especially if you're only like half a point different.
Feels pretty good. Does it?
Definitely knows it's a difference.
Can you? What do you notice? We lost a marker, so we got to redo it. But what do you notice about the way that one feels?
It kind of feels like things are better aligned when that's happening.
Because we do see it, like if you just kind of watch your run, we see the feet kind of splaying out a little bit. So let's put this back on here, and I'll probably do the same thing on the other side, just as the more we run, sometimes we get a little sweat when we're going. How did that one compare to the run low to the ground?
It was, I was needed to get the coordination of it a little bit, so it felt a little awkward.
Yes.
But I was starting to feel like
okay. Good. Okay. So this will give you a chance. We'll play around with it a little bit more, and then I might not hit start on it until you kind of tell me you feel that little bit of, yeah, I think I'm doing it. And
collapsing is admittedly, one of the hardest to change with some of that, especially that adduction and internal rotation. It's not that all collapsing is bad either, and that we need to have 0 degrees of hip adduction or internal rotation. That's not necessarily the goal with it. It's just, it matches up in this case towards some of his right-sided symptoms. So we wanted to see if we could affect that and if it would have a change. But I'm not necessarily married to any one thing. It's like, what does he feel better and where do we want to start? You can definitely even just observe a little more space in between the knees compared to when we watched the first couple ones here, as he's focusing on the knee cue of keeping the knees apart cue right now. You can definitely just observe a little bit more space between the knees there.
You brought the hip adduction down to 12, actually, on the right, which is good. So that's less with it. Let's take a look at it here.
And that's the symptomatic side, just as a reminder, the right side.
Just a little bit less looking from the back. Like, see, you're just keeping a little bit of space there, right? And went to Catholic school, leave room for the Holy Spirit.
Yes, exactly.
Like it dances there. So good. Just, a little bit less.
And he was 4.96 for a score.
Back into the 4s there.
Compared to the prior ones, what is it showing on the stamp that they were caving in a little less?
Yes, it was. So those were like 15, 16, and this one's 12.
Okay.
So less of that, lower is better for how much the knees are coming in there. So I like that a bit there. Yeah. All right.
His vertical oscillation went up a little bit.
Experiment with the one thing that we haven't seen to see how it has an effect up the chain.
Yeah.
I do want to pop the shoes off. And I want to see if we can teach you to land in a little bit more neutral foot position, how that might impact further up the chain. Just because, hey, we're measuring. Let's see. I'm just going to put the...
So you'll note I'm trying a lot of different cues here and doing a couple different things. Mainly, one of the things that we started with, the reason I conveyed the runner readiness assessment results, is he doesn't have a lot of mobility restrictions. He is predominantly limited in stability and motor control. So if this was somebody that had a lot of mobility restrictions, I probably wouldn't try as many cues or do as many different things, because I really don't want to challenge him too much, and there's probably other things that we need to address to be able to make some of those changes. But in this scenario, I can really try a couple different things here.
Calibrate you, just because we got these going there. All right, feet pointed forward. Okay. All right, here we go.
All right, so he's calibrated. Now we'll have him try here.
Get one with the shoes off. It's not a big deal. But I would just want to see if it's more of a training technique for you there. Actually, the nice thing about this treadmill is it's a very firm deck.
Yeah.
So it's going to force you to kind of feel the ground a bit.
That's fun.
So you can definitely see the difference in it. And if you may not be able to hear the treadmill through the webinar here, but he definitely was a lot quieter this way.
Yeah. Yes.
And he said it's forcing the feet to think a little bit. He's noticing more activity in the feet.
Yeah. Okay. Come take a look at that score. 1.97. And actually, you got a very rare uncategorized, which
What
means
does
we
that
wouldn't
mean?
change much about your
Wow.
running that way. Like we rarely get
That's
that
fascinating.
uncategorized here.
It almost felt like I wasn't a heel
Yeah.
striker doing that.
No, you were landing much more like midfoot, forefoot
Yeah.
there. So there still was, like, you did a really nice job of that. There still was some adduction, and actually you went back up in the adduction. But it is because all the other things look so good, it gave you that uncategorized thing. So you notice even like the ankles cleaned up, and you're mostly greens here now. So that's pretty good. So I would say, I want you to try it again.
Yeah.
But keep the knees apart a little bit this time.
Yeah.
And see, do it like, since we're not giving you, you're only thinking about one thing. You're just running barefoot.
Yep.
And all you're thinking about is the knees apart. Because I feel like your cue that worked best for you was the knees apart.
Yeah.
Now, if we give you more feedback by having the shoes off, it's going to maybe have double play. Because I don't like to do necessarily 2 cues at once, but let's give this a shot. There we go. All right, I'm just gonna make sure that's all good. Same thing here. Knees apart. I mean, definitely quieter. Okay, don't relax down. We'll do. How does that feel? Is it too much with it? You're right there. Feel good? I'm just gonna get in there, and I'm gonna put this marker back on and try again there. Think of it, it's just the ones on the socks there. Think about what you're feeling, right? Like, where are you landing? How much are you going up and down right now? What, like, how quiet is it? Like, just take a mental note about how this feels. Yeah. Good. So let's put shoes back on. I'm just gonna steal these from you. Okay. And now let's just see, kind of recreate the feel of the barefoot with the knees apart.
So we did a couple captures here. I just wanted to see how he did with the shoes to see how he carried over. So my goal is not to get him to run barefoot. My goal is you use barefoot as a drill, just like we would the wall drill or skips or hurdles or ladders or anything like that. The barefoot is to increase his awareness and proprioception of how he's running. And then that's why, if you observed earlier, I kept telling him, like, what does it feel like when you're barefoot? Where do you feel the force? How do you feel it? What are you noticing? So that he starts to categorize that and puts it in a spot where he understands what we're looking for.
Good. Not like we put the shoes back on, and with your best one was with the shoes off.
That was fun.
Right, that one was fun there. But we did see you did bring down a little bit of that adduction. You're able to do it there. Your foot position is much better in this position, and it did bring it down to like a 3.59. So that is good. Your cadence came back up because you had kind of been sinking, and it went back up a bit there, and the vertical oscillation was still lower. So that's a really nice happy medium, right? I'm not going to have you go run all of your running barefoot, but I think doing some warm up.
That was a good exercise. I could definitely feel it.
Good.
With the shoes.
Feeling it with the shoes, like if you feel the carryover, I think what we'll see is that each time you do it, you get a little bit better and a little closer to what that barefoot looks like, even in the shoes there.
I like it.
So I think that's good spot to say, like, hey, this is a kind of a good form. What do you think about it?
I like it.
Yeah.
I think it definitely felt lighter on the body, like
good.
less kind of abuse to the hips.
Good. Yeah, if you're feeling less abuse in the hips there, think about how that adds up over the course of the 13 miles or so and doing some of that. What did you think about the pace? Because that was our other thing there.
Felt nice.
Felt nice for that? Good.
So.
I think we got your ground contact time actually down pretty low even there with it too, which is where you were having trouble with when you were on the ground for longer, you started having more trouble with that. And that looked pretty good actually with it. So I'm pretty happy with where this is now with that. So I think that would be a good starting place to say, hey, let's do a little bit of this. I think if we do a combination of, we get you doing a little bit of gait retraining, where you're doing a little bit at the start of your runs, then we get a little strength program for the hips.
I love it.
Right. The nice thing is, and this is a good point, as we're kind of using this as a case study, because you had such good mobility with what we saw in the runner readiness, we could play around a lot with these cues, right? Because you have good movement, we're not limited in that. That's really helpful for us. But the one area that we don't have as much is the biggest problem area here. But so that we have these sayings like stability is not ability.
Got it.
Right? So just strengthening your hips doesn't change your form. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch that we have to say, okay, I'm probably going to give you 2 or 3 exercises to focus on for hip strength. And the important thing with them will be quality. One of them is just going to be a step up. So I'm literally just going to have you find something that's about mid-shin height, and I want you to focus on keeping the knee in line with your second toe, holding like a weight, and I want you to focus on pushing through your heel and stepping up and controlling on the way back down.
Yeah.
That's a simple.
I could already imagine that being very helpful.
Good. And when we're in this position, it engages our glutes a little bit more because you're up higher. So a little higher one, mid shin height or higher, no higher than your knee. But start with that and just go as high as you can where you still have good form. I think a step up with
the knees straight.
Exactly.
Caving in.
Yep. The other one that I'm going to have you do, you're going to get against a wall and you're going to push the knees apart like this, okay? And then you're going to hold there and just try and see if you can maintain that position and feel that in your hips without holding on.
Good. So we're just showing him some of the exercises here, and then just showing him that. And then I think we did both sides. And he wasn't feeling it. He did notice a big difference there, right versus left, in the ability to recruit that. So that solidified it a little bit more that it was a symptomatic side, and he needed to work on that. So that gets the buy-in of doing the exercises. So the other thing we did want to just try one other thing. We did a lumbo-pelvic manip on him because he was traveling down to see me. And we did find some things. The only thing he was really limited in was a little bit of like toe touch back bend. So we did like some lumbo-pelvic tests. I manipulated him and I put him back on just to kind of look at how that interacted with it. To kind of show, hey, as we're doing some of this, we didn't really see as much change in the adduction and internal rotation. So if we give him more mobility and have him do the cue, how did he do there? Again, I'm doing a lot in this one just because he did travel to see me. We had a longer session. I wanted to do it. This was, we were about 80 minutes, I think, for this. So we got a lot done in 80 minutes. And we did this for him. And I wanted to see, to kind of help him coordinate with his physical therapist that would be back home, to see if he, benefited from getting some mobility in the hips and low back here.
Because you went from like that 14, 15 last time to 12 on the left and 10 on the right.
That's good.
So
there is
it did bring down his hip adduction pretty instantly. You see there's only like 2 or 3 minutes between the manipulation and there. So that definitely did make a big difference there. So if you have questions, start putting them in the chat. But I still have my name tag on from back to school night. one of the things, just wanted to let you know, follow up. So he came back 2 weeks later, and we did another analysis, and what we saw is that he did a really good job of retaining it. His score was still in the 3s, I believe. I checked it earlier and I got notes, but he came back. He did a really good job. He had maintained the foot inclination position really well. His hip adduction and internal rotation went back up a little bit, but he was really solid on the vertical oscillation, the ground contact time, the cadence, and the foot inclination, so that he really didn't have to think about that anymore. And then when I cued him a little bit more, and we did some other things, we did another session, and he got down to a 1.4 for his score. And his adduction got into single digits on both sides. I think he was 8 and 9 on that, and he felt a big difference. But I followed up with him several other times, and he's back running full, no pain, really having a lot of success with the program and being able to see a big difference with that. So we saw a lot of improvement on that side here. So I will start going over some questions now, and love to hear your thoughts and things like that. So Deborah's asking, why did you do the manual work? I saw that I really wanted to improve his adduction a little bit more. And as I was thinking about his runner readiness assessment, I saw that the only mobility restrictions he had was really around like hip and lumbopelvic area. So if he had those there, and that was the thing that we couldn't change with the Gait training, I wanted to try just like a quick fix. And I also wanted to help coordinate with his therapist back home to kind of give some ideas. A lot of times I'll like quarterback some of the care and some of the things that are best for them to do. So that was one of the things I just wanted to try for a little last minute. Does this make a difference, and should we give him some exercises to focus on improving some of that? So hopefully that answers that question. Brett asked, did you end up recommending he did not do 13 miles at that speed every other day? Yes. So really good question. Training load errors account for 60% of why people are having injuries. So we recommended that he back off to about that like 7:15 pace ultimately, I think is where he wound up, as opposed he was at like 6:45 to 6:30 pace for that. We did talk about even some variation in his training. We ultimately gave him some coaching as well on, a little bit more polarized training methods where he wasn't necessarily running 13 miles every other day. And he definitely was slowing down the pace so that he was at more of that 4 to 5 effort, like convincing him to go from 9. I really want him at like a 3-4 effort for those, and then getting him and just teaching him a little bit about tempo efforts and threshold work and some track stuff, and showing him how it can be pretty simple. I really like, for him, I think we got him on tempo alternations, where he would go between that like 6:30 to even like 6:15 pace. He would do a half mile at that, and then he would go back to like a 7:30 pace to let his body recover with that. And he was building up. He's still building up, I think, a little bit of that. He's up to about 9 miles of doing that. But we definitely did talk about, how we can change some of those things. Good. So hopefully that answers that question from Brett. Thank you. Dennis, do you have a good lay explanation for hip adduction and internal rotation? Yes, and Dennis, maybe give me a little more context if you're looking about like how they, like what they are, or more like how they can impact performance or speed or things like that. So I'll maybe answer both if you want to clarify what you're asking there. But when I talk about hip adduction and internal rotation, I explain it to the runner. Thank you, Dennis. So, the way I describe it is just, I think I even showed it in the video, saying hip adduction is as the knees get closer, and hip internal rotation is when we're starting to turn our kneecaps in towards each other. And what we see is that our body does really good with forces straight up and down. But as we start to add rotation, we're not going to have the same strength. So our bones are stronger than steel when we're loading them straight up and down, but they lose a lot of that strength as we start to put some of that stress at an angle, which is what the adduction and the internal rotation are really doing to some of those structures. So that's how I'll kind of educate them about the importance of that. There's another statistic from I don't know if it's level 1 or level 2 certified running gait analyst course that talks about how when you have some of those collapsing mechanics with the adduction internal rotation, your bones can only handle 59% of their normal capability for stress, which is not enough to run downhill without causing micro trauma to it. So putting that in a little bit more relatable terms here, you see about a 40% reduction in the strength of our bones when we run with those mechanics, and that can lead to things like stress fractures and stress reactions in the future. So hopefully that answered that question. Good. Other questions or other thoughts? I know we're kind of getting close to time here. Do the shoes of your patients have any effect on their hip or knee collapse? Yeah, great question. We've actually done, Sherry, a lot of shoe testing recently. That's been really interesting. I did, we want to put a video out about this here, but I tested 7 different pairs of shoes for me, and my score changed pretty dramatically. So in the best pair of shoes, I was a 0.91 for the score, and for the worst pair of shoes for me, I was closer to a 6. So that's a pretty, like, if you think percentage wise, that's a pretty large range too with that. And but I'm pretty proud of that 0.91. I've been working on my form for a while here, trying to meet my own score with it. But one of the things that we're really finding with the shoes is that shoes do have a significant impact on running form. That is a big part of it. However, unfortunately, we can't say this type of shoe affects this person or this type of shoe affects this person this way, because people's foot structure is differently. They have different mobility. They have different stability, strength, motor control, whatever you want to call it. We really can't just blanket prescribe, oh, you collapse, you need a stability shoe, or you need something with a low stack height or a high stack height. There's so many variables that we really should be testing people. I don't know if Coach Pat's still on here. They're using it at Fleet Feet. And I think we're seeing a lot of running retailers and running store specialists really seeing that is a crucial part of the fit process that's often being neglected. And that's something that we want to look at. But, that is something we sell. I think I'm in the clinic now, so if you can see, we have some like shoes right behind me here. We do sell shoes, and we will have people try different shoes on just to see how they work. And sometimes the ones that we have are good for people, and sometimes they're not. And we don't sell them to them if they don't do well with that there. Good. And just a reminder, if I think there's a couple people that are interested in the Helix, I've got something for you guys at the end if you just want to stick around at the end for a second. But we'll probably take Brett's and maybe one more question if anybody else has another question or something to add there. Brett said, with a change of foot ground angle like you saw with this runner, did you have to make any shoe recommendations change with him as far as the drop of shoe is concerned, so they aren't landing in too much of a plantar flex foot possession, or was footwear good? I saw a runner last month where his score dropped 4 points by making him go from a 12 millimeter drop to an 8 millimeter drop. Yeah, so similar kind of question there with it. I'll make kind of one non-shoe comment first. When we change, as we do really want to make sure that they have good ankle mobility and good calf strength and good foot intrinsic strength, which he had all of those. Somebody that makes this dramatic of a change, I'm going to slow play them if they don't have those three things. So I really want, and this is actually Hannah's kind of leading question here, would you get him on a strong foot program here? But I think what we really see in this situation is that he might want to try some different shoes or different things there, that a lower stack height, a lower heel to toe drop. We could absolutely try those things, but he was pretty comfortable in those shoes and seemed to like them. So because we were changing so much, I didn't want to change all of the variables, but shoes is something that, one of the things we've been talking with a lot of our Helix customers about is, okay, like you can see from this, I mean, I could have at least 4 or 5 sessions with him and be able to really address a lot of these things. I can't, we can do anything, but not everything. So with this, I would, if he lived more locally, I would have had him back within a week, and we would have, really made some differences and give him some more feedback. Then we bring him back at the 2-week mark and see if he stabilizes out after some fine adjustments. Then I bring him back in a month if he was doing well there. Probably bring him back another 2 to 4 weeks after that, as we're talking about some training, and I'd probably turn him into a coaching client as we go there. See if there's shoes that we want. Like, this is what we say, like, these people know, like, and trust you. Keep them in your circle, be of value to them, and be that quarterback of care there. Hannah asked, why was he collapsing? What was his stiffness score? So his collapsing was a little bit combination of mobility, because we saw that we did a mobility intervention, and then all of a sudden, like, some of the collapsing improved, and who knows, maybe, just thinking from the academic side of me, like, the manipulation might not have actually given him much more mobility. It might have helped him just improve muscle activation as well. Neuro reset, like, it could have provided a little bit of a wake up to his system in that area, and just a little bit more proprioception. But we did see his stiffness score improve as he went through there. He was around like a 15 or 16, I believe, for stiffness, which is overall good. But I think when he had his shoes off, he went up to like 18 or 19. So we see an improved stiffness when it's symmetrical like that, can be indicative of some improved performance metrics that we're seeing there. So great. So thank you all. It's great to see your feedback, see your questions with this. We hope these are helpful. The next one, we film some quicker, shorter sessions. So the screens that we do, we're going to show 2 or 3 of those, and then we're going to maybe ask some people if they'd be willing to share their experience as well for that. And we hope these are helpful for you, just to kind of see what it looks like, what does a gait analysis look like, the wording that we use, all things. For our Helix users, if you like this, please be sure, check out the office rounds. And if you're not getting the emails about that, let us know. But office rounds has been really good. We've been talking about some really good topics and seeing some really good results with that too. We had somebody that did screens, and they weren't getting a lot of conversions with the screens, and then they converted 4 people out of 6 the next screen that they did. So it's been really good with that. So let everyone go. If you are interested in the Helix, stick around. And Coach Pat was asking about walking. We do have some walking kind of stuff there. We do have a walking one. I don't think that one would be until Q1 of 2026 is when we have that one scheduled for.